Hi, I'm Emma, this is Emma Rosen Books. Today I wanted to talk to you about finding the time to write your book. My book, which I haven't released the title yet, but it's about the experiences and what I've learned about breastfeeding my children, is currently away with a copy editor. So I have actually finished writing my book, so I thought this would be a good way to talk about that experience. And finding the time to write, I would say, something I'm a specialist in. Now, you may disagree with that, given that it took me 5 years to actually write the book and 2 years to edit it. However, there's a few things that muddy the water with that, because of course you can write a book considerably quicker than that, and I thought I was going to. But firstly, because I was writing about the experience of feeding my children, I had to go through those experiences first before I wrote them. So there were big periods of time where not a lot was going on, I didn't really have anything to say, and so I wasn't actively writing. Also, there were big periods of time where I was researching. It's one of the reasons that non-fiction can take an awfully long time to write. But also, like an awful lot of people, you can't just suddenly say, well, I'm a writer now, and do it full time. Most people, when they start their writing careers, are going to be doing other stuff. So during that time, I've had 3 children, so I've spent an awful lot of time looking after children. It makes it very difficult to find time to write when you're spending your days with children. You can't just suddenly get a laptop out, because babies like to rip the things apart. I've also worked full-time, I've worked part-time, I did a master's degree during that time. Like, I've been really busy, and I have other commitments, like I do a little bit of volunteer work in the community and stuff, life stuff. So this book has taken me an awfully long time, because I've been learning a lot, I've had a lot of draws on my time, and there were, like I said, periods of time within that where I wasn't actively writing. The 2 years spent editing is probably not strictly true, it's probably more like a year, but it's all in pieces. I'll explain about the editing process some other time. So I thought I'd go through my 5 tips that I've used to find the time to write. So number 1, to me, the most important thing is motivation. My motivation to write was 2 things. The first one was that I was so passionate about how I felt, about how hard I'd found breastfeeding, that I shouldn't have found it that hard. A lot of things happened to me that were completely avoidable. I felt so cross that something which is biologically normal for our bodies to do, socially, was so hard. And that was a big driving force for me of saying, this book needs to exist, I need to write this story. The other side of things is I've always wanted to be a writer. Since I was tiny, I've wanted to be a writer. As soon as I knew what a job was, it's what I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know how you did it. I mean, at school, anytime I said that I wanted to be a writer, they'd say, oh, well, you need to be a journalist. Personally, I don't agree with that careers advice. I mean, yes, of course, there are creative writing degrees and things like that, but to me it just seemed like you can't just like answer a job advert and say, yes, I would like to be a writer, unless you are a journalist. And I needed a job that was more concrete than that. So anyway, the point is that my dream was always to be a writer. It's what I'd always say to people, one day this is what I'd like to do. And I kind of figured, well, it'll be when I retire. But I was always looking for that opportunity. So once I thought of the story and I felt passionate about it and I felt like I knew what I was doing, I was on my route to achieving that goal. So having that motivation, you know, when I'm sat there really tired and really not feeling like writing, but to think, well, I really want this book to exist and I really want to be a writer, helps you to get the laptop out and get going. Equally, if you've had a really rubbish day at work and you can kind of go, you know what, I'm going to be a writer. One day I'll show you guys. You know, whatever it is that your motivation is, everybody has their reason that they want to do this, that they want to write that book. You need to find whatever that motivation is and use that when you need it. Number 2 is to have a goal. Now, I don't mean just like, obviously the goal is to have like a physical book, but I mean like a time goal. And when I first came up with the idea of the book, I researched how long it takes to write a book and how many words are in a book. So if a book is roughly 80,000 words, depending on the kind of book, and if I write for an hour a day, and let's say I write 1,000 words in an hour, which seemed plausible, it'll take you roughly 3 months. So I was like, well, that's cool. Even if I write half an hour a day, that's 6 months. I kind of naively forgot about editing and rewriting and all of that, but still. So I kind of thought, okay, let's call it 6 months and I'll have a book by then. I mean, stuff happened in that time where I suddenly realised that I wasn't going to have anything to write about. I needed an awful lot more life experience to actually have a story to tell. So it took an awful lot longer than that. But it gave me like a ballpark figure to work from, that I need to do this much writing in order to achieve this goal. And although it's kept changing for me, like I said, there have been points where I've said, well, I can't write anymore, I need to wait until this thing happens, you know, I need to wait until I've started giving my baby food and see how that changes the situation, or I've got to do a whole load of research actually, or I'm going to wait until I've finished feeding my baby so that I can talk about that experience, or whatever it is that, you know, it hasn't been quite that simple in my case. But every time that I got into a writing phase of, okay, I've got something that I need to work on for this book, I would return to that same mindset of, okay, well, I need to write for a period of time every day so that I can achieve an end point. For most people, their book idea isn't going to depend on them actually living experience first. So you are going to be able to say, okay, if I write for X amount of time, then I'll be able to produce a book. Come on, come and help me make my video. Come on, come here, come and sit with me, come on. Be quiet, just sit nicely, Go away then, go on, go. No, the bits. You're not helpful at all, you're not. My third point is to schedule. What you need to do is analyse your life a bit and see where the times are that you can take advantage of. So for me, I've used the times when I've been actually feeding my baby, because can kind of lie back, feed baby, have laptop. Or after the children are in bed, that kind of evening time, which it's difficult to give that time up, because when you've been full on with kids all day, you've put them to bed, what you want to do is go downstairs and chill out, like read or watch TV or whatever it is. You sure as hell don't want to be working. But still, that worked for me. It was the only time in my day when I would be child-free and able to concentrate. For some of you, it might be that you get a bit of time in the morning. You know, whilst you're having your breakfast, you can write for 20 minutes, or maybe your lunch hour at work. I have quite often written when we're on a long journey somewhere, so sitting in the car, it depends whether that makes you feel sick, but if you've got like a 2-hour journey, that's a really great time to find to do some writing. Or it might be you have a commute, or it might be that you do it when you get in from work or whatever, but it depends, everybody's life is different, but you need to have a look and say, okay, when can I regularly find a block of time, whether that be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is. And ultimately there is going to be a little bit of sacrifice. You're going to have to, like for me, give up that time of sitting and watching TV, or it might be that, you know, you can't sit and read BBC News during your lunch break, or like whatever, but there will be some point where you have to push something else out of your life to find the time to write. But that's where you come back to this whole idea of what your motivation is. If you really want to be a writer, then you'll do it. 4 is accountability. I am so good at holding myself accountable. If I've said to myself at 8 o'clock every day, you will write for 20 minutes, then I will do that. But that's really because I'm a creature of habit. If I have a certain thing that I do every day, then I'm just keep at it. Once you've decided when you're going to do your writing, you have to hold yourself accountable for that time, in the same way that if you've got a job, you've got to go to work. You know, you've got to turn up on time and work. And it's the same with writing. You've got to, at that time, do what you set out to do, and whether you're in the writing part or the editing part or whatever it is, that is the time that you have dedicated to getting your laptop out, or however it is that you write, getting your dictaphone out, or getting your pen and paper, or whatever. But you need to turn up, and if you don't, then that's not great. You know, you've got to say to yourself, well, I know why I want to be doing this, so I need to do it. There has to be that part of accountability and determination. If you've said you're going to do it, then do it. So with the planes, filming, But nonetheless, number 5, be kind to yourself. If you've had a terrible day at work and you're just not in the right headspace to be creative, or something's happened, like, I don't know, family stuff, whatever, or you're exhausted because you've been burning the candles at both ends, that happens to me a lot, you know, your kids have been gits all day, you know, you're not in the right place to be writing, then don't. As long as you're not constantly making excuses. If you need a break, take a break, you know, if you need a week off because it's getting to you and you're finding it hard, give yourself a week off. And equally, be kind to yourself and reward yourself. It's not something I tend to do, but I know for a lot of people it does work, you know, oh, every time I don't know, if I've written 5,000 words, then I'll have a glass of wine, or if I manage to write for an hour, then I'll eat a square of chocolate, or like whatever it is. I have my rewards planned out for when the book is released. But I know lots of people need shorter term goals, shorter term rewards than that, and that's absolutely fine. Sometimes the reward for me is actually fantasising and being able to spend that time going, well, one day I'm going to be able to just like swan around and be a writer and like wear scarves and just, you know, just go to a cafe and write and drink fancy coffee. And I'm going to make so many millions that I'm going to be able to buy like the most amazing mansion house where all of my friends are going to be able to live. I'm sure everybody's had these kind of fantasies when you go off on a bit of a tangent. But, you know, allowing yourself to just think like, oh, one day I'm going to be a writer. And however extreme you want to make that, whether you want to go, one day I'm going to be a struggling writer, or whether you want to be like, one day I'm going to be the queen writer. Like, whatever, you do you. But sometimes just being able to have that headspace and enjoy that altruistic life, especially if you're a writer, you're a storyteller, hey? That can be a reward. But just be good to yourself. Like, don't just constantly flog yourself, must write, you know. Allow yourself to breathe, to enjoy writing. After all, I'm sure for most of us, all of us, surely the reason we want to be a writer is because we love writing. So don't make it this awful thing that you've got to just keep, you know, love it as well. And it's finding that balance between being accountable for what you said you were going to do and doing the work even when you really can't be bothered because you're doing rewrites on a chapter that you've already done like 1,000 times. Between letting yourself have a break to enjoy the writing process and be proud and happy and all the things that you want to be for being a writer, to actually love your job and love what you do. Anyway, these 5 things are what got me through that writing process, and I am just in this great place at the moment where I'm so proud of having done it, having written it, edited it, and now be kind of on the final straight. Anyway, please like if you found what I said helpful. If you've got any tips that you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments below. Subscribe for more videos about books and about writing. And I will see you all again for my next one. Bye. Beautiful girl. You are the best doggy. Oh.